So let's read section 6 of Premchand's story, A Coward. Section 6 is the last section of this story. Remember that in section 5, toward the end, Keshav's father threatens to expel him from his home, and then Keshav walks away with his legs utterly numb. Keshav's father insults Prema's father, and Keshav says that he does not know. Keshav says that it's a lie that he's in love. And let's read section 6. The next day, Prema sent this letter to Keshav, because now you can imagine that Prema's father returned from Keshav's home, and then Prema's father must have told all these things to Prema. Now Prema writes this letter. Dearest Keshav, even after the insult that Keshav's father gave to Prema's father, Prema still has love for Keshav. And look how she addresses him. Dearest Keshav, I was terribly upset when I heard about the rude and callous way your father treated mine. So that means Prema's father told Prema that Keshav's father insulted him. Perhaps he has threatened you too. Now look, Keshav's father threatened Keshav after Prema's father returned from Keshav's father's home. So Prema's father did not see this. But Prema can imagine, can anticipate. Do you see Prema as a character? She is a very wise character. She can make inferences. She can make inductions and deductions. She can reason well. She can anticipate. She can calculate the situation. So she understands that Keshav's father must have or might have threatened him also. Then she writes, in which case I wait anxiously to hear what your decision is. Very clearly, Prema says, your father might have threatened you also as he insulted my father. So what is your decision now? Because in section 1, if you remember, Keshav said that caste is a fraud for him. Keshav said that he goes with new ideas. Keshav accused Prema that he's slave of old traditions. And Keshav said that marrying Prema is the culmination of his life. Keshav said that he can stand against his parents for Prema. And now Prema is asking Keshav for his decision. I am ready to undergo any kind of hardship with you. This is exactly what Keshav spoke in section 1. Keshav in section 1 said that he can undergo any trouble to get Prema. Now Prema says that she can undergo any hardship to stay with Keshav. I am aware of your father's wealth, but all I need is your love to content me. Now remember in section 3 when Prema's father showed the photograph of that public service examination passing boy and said that this guy who has government job will have good money and power. There Prema told her father that she has nothing to do with money and power. She looks for self-sacrifice in a person. Now here again, Prema says that she has nothing to do with Keshav's father's money. She will be happy with Keshav's love. Then she writes, come tonight and have dinner with us. Now Prema so courageously invites Keshav. Look, Prema is a wonderful character. Come tonight and have dinner with us. My mother and father are both eager to meet you. My mother and father are both eager to meet you. I am caught up in the dream of when the two of us will be joined by that bond that cannot be broken. Look how Prema writes. I am caught up in the dream. Dream of what? Dream of marrying Keshav. When the two of us will be joined by that bond of marriage that cannot be broken. So look, Prema is looking for happy life with Keshav. That remains strong no matter how great the difficulty is. So Prema still is waiting for Keshav to come and marry her. Your Prema. A very brief letter, very powerful letter. Move ahead. By evening, there had been no reply to this letter. Now, interestingly, as I read the story, I wanted to know who is the postman here? Who is the boy or girl who is carrying these letters secretly to Keshav and from Keshav to Prema? That is not mentioned. By evening, there had been no reply to this letter. Prema's mother asked over and over again, is not Keshav coming? And her father kept his eyes glued on the door. I sometimes feel pity about Prema's father. He is the father of a daughter. And in our society, India, Nepal, the father of a daughter is always, under a heavy load pressure. Look here. Prema's father is ready to bear any insult for Prema's happiness. So he still hopes that Keshav would come. So he is looking at the door. By 9 o'clock, there was still no sign of Keshav, nor any letter. In Prema's mind, all sorts of fears and hopes revolved. Now Prema began to think, what happened? Why Keshav didn't answer? Why Keshav didn't come? Perhaps, now she imagines, perhaps Keshav had no chance to write a letter, no chance to come today, so that tomorrow he would surely come, Prema imagines. She read over again the love letters he had written her earlier. How steeped in love was every word in those letters. How much emotion, anxiety, and acute desire. Then she remembered the words he had said 100 times, and often he had wept before her. Look how she imagines. Keshav had wept before Prema many times in the past. It was impossible for Keshav to despair Prema with so many proofs. Prema could not imagine that Keshav will cheat her. But all the same, throughout the night, she was tormented by anxiety. She could not sleep. And next morning, early in the morning, Keshav's answer came. Prema took the letter with trembling hands and read it. The letter fell from her hands. Now we can see that there was something tragic written in the letter. Otherwise, why would the letter fall from the hands? It seemed to her that her blood had ceased to flow. He had written, let's read the case of the letter. I am in a terrible quandary. Quandary is a situation where you can't decide what to do. I am in a terrible quandary about how to answer you. I have been desperate trying to figure out what to do. And I have come to the conclusion that for the present, please highlight this word, for the present, there is a condition. For the present, it would be impossible for me to go against my father's order. This is exactly what Prema said in section 1. Do you remember? When Keshav told Prema to tell about the marriage at home, and when Keshav tried to hold Prema's hand, do you remember what Prema said? She said that she cannot go against her parents who gave her birth and raised her. Right? Now in section 1, Prema said she cannot go against her parents. Now here, Keshav says he cannot go against his father. So do you see the conflict between the parental generation and the young generation? The conflict in the story is between the parent and the children. In section 1, in case of Keshav, the conflict is between Keshav and his father. Again here, the conflict is between the conflict is between Keshav and father, because Keshav says he cannot go against his father's orders. In section 1, Prema says she cannot go against her parents' command and desire. So there is conflict. Note down under the heading conflict. Conflict between parent and children. Read ahead. Don't think I am a coward. Oh, look. When Keshav says, it seems impossible for me to go against my father, then he writes, don't think I am a coward. And the title of the story comes here, a coward. This is the first time in the story in all 6 sections that the word coward has been used. Don't think I'm a coward. I am not being selfish either. Reading this line, I'm not coward, I'm not selfish. The question comes, is Keshav really not coward? Is Keshav really not selfish? Then we remember section 5, where writer says that Keshav wanted to marry Prema in secret. And Keshav thought one day father will die, then he can marry Prema and live with her. Don't think I'm coward. Read this line in relation to that line above in section 5. When Keshav says, don't think I'm coward, remember, Keshav had the plan to marry Prema in secret. Remember, Keshav thought one day father will die and he can convince mother. I'm not being selfish either. So if you read this line in relation to the line in section 5 where you read that he had the plan to marry Prema secretly, then you can say that Keshav is not really selfish. But the situation is such. But I don't have the strength to get over the obstacles facing me. This is very important line. Ask a question. What are these obstacles? The obstacle of the caste, the obstacle of culture, the obstacle of social evils, the obstacle of the society, the obstacle of his ill-tempered father. But I don't have the strength to get over the obstacles facing me. As I read this line, I don't have strength to get over the obstacles facing me. What I remember is section 1, where Keshav was bragging that he has the courage to stand against anyone and anybody. Forget what I told you before. Oh God, this is the most painful line to read. Forget what I told you before. And we know what Keshav told in Victoria Park. And Keshav has written dozens of letters, and we can imagine what Keshav might have written in those letters. Forget what I told you before. At that time, I had no idea of how hard it was going to be. Why it is getting hard? Because Keshav is not able to stand against the traditions. Keshav is not able to stand against the society. Keshav is not able to stand against the rigid customs. Keshav is not able to stand against religion. Keshav is not able to stand against caste principles. Read ahead. Prema drew a long, painful breath. Then she tore up the letter. She must have been angry and threw it away. Her eyes filled with tears. She had never had the slightest expectation that the Keshav she had taken into her heart of hearts as her husband could be so cruel. Look how painful the story becomes toward the end. This is the climax of the story. The story is having rising action. It was as though until now she had been watching a golden vision, but on opening her eyes, it had vanished completely. All her hope had disappeared, and she was left in darkness. See, the word darkness is very remarkable in this story because in section 2, when Prema is talking with her mother, and when mother says that those who marry intercaste have problem, and when Prema realizes that mother won't support her intercaste marriage, Prema imagines that she is inside a dark tunnel which is swallowing her, darkness. That imagery of tunnel comes even when Prema is talking to her father. Again, here we have this darkness. So in this story, there is an interplay between light and darkness. If you see, pay attention to what sections take place in darkness and what sections take place in light. Section 1 takes place in evening. Section 2 takes place at night. Section 3 takes place in the morning. Section 4 takes place in light. Section 5 also takes place during day. Section 6 takes place evening and night and next morning. Read ahead. What did Keshav write? Her mother asked. Prema looked at the floor and said, he is not feeling well. What else was there to say? She could not have borne the shame of revealing Keshav's brutal disloyalty. Now I have a question to you students. Prema thinks that Keshav is disloyal. Do you also think that Keshav is disloyal? While answering my question, whether Keshav is disloyal, do not forget what you read in section 5, where you read that Keshav had the plan to marry Prema secretly. Do you think that Keshav should have told some details about this plan in his letter so that Prema would be convinced that if Keshav cannot come today, she can come sometime later? Okay, move ahead. She spent the whole day working around the house as though there were nothing wrong. She made dinner for everyone that evening and ate with them. Then, until quite late, she played the harmonium and sang. As I read these lines, I am surprised. How can a girl who is undergoing such a tragic situation, how can she make dinner? How can she eat as a normal girl with her family members? How can she play harmonium? How can she sing? With what heart could she sing? Then read the last line of the story. In the morning, they found her lying dead in a room at a moment when the golden rays of dawn bestowed on her face the illusory splendor of life. The remarkable thing in this closing line is within a single sentence, the writer brings together life and death. In a single sentence, there is life and death. See, they found her lying dead in a room. Death. At what moment? When the golden rays of the rising sun, dawn, bestowed on her face the illusory splendor of life. When the golden light fell on her face looked as if she is alive, but actually she was dead. This is the climax of the story. This is the end of the story. So this is a tragic story. It ends with a tragedy. We met Prema in the first line of the story. Now, with a heavy heart and tears in our eyes, we see Prema dead. I feel very difficult ending the story. I'm really moved by this story. I have pity about this young girl. She might be 20, 21, your age. And look, I have a question you can think about. Why did Prema have to commit suicide? What would you have done if you were Prema? What would you have done if you were Keshav? Besides this, let me also wrap up by reminding something about elements of a story. Let me count one by one. You note in a note copy. First element of a story is setting, which means the time. This story was written in 1930s. So this story describes the Indian society almost 90 years before. Another is place. Though no city is mentioned, but because there is park, Victoria Park, and because there is a college, we can infer that this story took place in a town, city, not village. Then atmosphere, environment. Throughout the story, you see there is tension, there is violence, there is excitement, there are tears. Prema is crying in the section 1 and Prema is crying in section 6. Nowhere you see Prema happy in the story. From beginning to end, this female character is suffering. Now, we have a big question. What is causing this female suffering from section 1 to 6? Now, you can think of the answer. Big question. What is the cause of all this suffering for the girl? So, regarding atmosphere, I should say the atmosphere in the story is very uncertain. It is very suffocating. It is full of pain and suffering. How do we know this thing? For example, Prema is crying all the time. Keshav is violent all the time. Keshav's father is so angry and violent. Prema's father is so badly insulted. Prema's mother is agitated and very unhappy, very sad. Prema herself is always in tears. Prema's father is agitated when Prema talks about Keshav to him. You remember that metaphor of the dark tunnel, where Prema says that this tunnel is going to swallow her life in her future? Setting. I talked about time, place, and atmosphere. Second is characters. Who are the characters? First we meet Keshav, then we meet Prema, then we meet Prema's mother, Vriddha, then we meet Prema's father, then we meet Keshav's father. Then dialogue. As you read the story, please read all 6 sections and highlight those dialogues which really touch you and interpret them, their meaning, why they are significant to you. Then there is plot, sequence of events, how they happen one after another. In the beginning, we see these two people at the park, Victoria Park in the corner. From there we see and how in section 1, Keshav leaves Prema in tears, and section 1 prepares us, the readers, to expect tragedy and difficult things in the story. Section 2, things get complicated. Prema was trying to tell her mother about her love affair, but when Prema comes to realize that mother won't support this intercaste affair, Prema does not tell. Section 3, Prema wakes up in the morning with a new courage. She thinks that if I don't tell, things will get more difficult. Then before she could tell her father about this affair, her father has a proposal. Prema with utmost courage tells her father, shows the photograph of Keshav. The father is very angry and he says, don't go to college because education has taught you to disregard our cultural values. 6 months pass. That is not given in the story. I invite you students, dear students, I invite you. Can you write the story of 6 months? Can you imagine what might have happened to Prema in the 6 months and write it? I'm sure something tragic happened because at the end of 6 months in section 4, when Prema's father and Vriddha, Prema's mother, have a private talk, Prema's father says that For 6 months she has been crying and she will commit suicide if you don't listen to her. And then they decide, they give in, they change their attitude. Even the mother says, okay, then call Keshav and let's manage it. And when they then he goes to Keshav's father with a proposal. And look how Keshav's father insults Prema's father. How Keshav's father threatens Keshav to expel from home. And how Keshav surrenders. And then Prema's father comes back home and tells Prema everything. And Prema writes a letter to Keshav. And she says, I'm still waiting for you to come and we'll get married. Don't worry. I don't need your father's money. Come, I need you only. I'm happy with you. But Keshav says, no, I can't, because Keshav's father said, I'll not give you a single penny from my property. And Keshav says, if I can't live in my father's house, where shall I go? I see that Keshav is a coward here at this point. He could have run away with Prema in a city and he could have worked as a laborer. He could have worked as a laborer. He could have cleaned the street. He could have washed someone's utensils and earned some money and lived with Prema happily. But he has no courage to revolt against his father. Right? Then in section 6, we see Keshav's letter comes. And Keshav's letter comes like a bomb. You read the letter. It acts like a bomb. It is Keshav's letter that causes Prema's suicide. If Keshav had not sent that letter, maybe Prema would not have committed suicide. So let's see these questions which are in the book. Maybe they will help us reflect more. Explain the main point or message of a coward. I won't explain, you answer. Students, I won't answer this question because I shouldn't spoon feed you with ideas. You decide. Discuss whether you would marry someone if your parents were against it. You decide. Choose a topic of your own related to the story. You can choose any other instance of caste discrimination in society and write about it. So I stop here, this section, and I hope this material will help you to prepare for the class presentation tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Hope you are ready for presentation.